Last time you might have seen me before the pandemic, my name has changed. I know, it's a little weird. So you probably may have been used to calling me Mr. Yenser, but I got sort of an upgrade in the meantime. And so my name is now Deacon Tom. I'm a deacon in the church now. I don't do anything different from what I did before. The church just decided to change the way they talk about and the way they view those of us who are rostered leaders who are not ordained. So there's a whole bunch of us. My wife is now Deacon Kathy, for instance, and there's all those people who served as educators and musicians and church administrators and hospital workers, and there's a whole lot of other categories. We're all now deacons. So you can call me Deacon Tom. If you forget and call me Mr. Yenser, I still answer to that. You can call me anything except late for dinner. Okay, a few of them are awake. A few of them are awake. Let me see if I know who you all are. I'm not gonna recognize you all in your masks. Adam and Dami. Okay, and then that's Macy back there in the cheer outfit, and next to you is Millie. Okay, Macy and Millie, great. Emmett, right? And Jack and Annalise. Is that you? Annalise is the way you say it, and does he? Elise just. Oh, but Elise is good. Elise is good. Meredith, and sitting next to Meredith is Kalia. Great. Kalia, Meredith, Thomas, right? Zoe. You, Kat? Yeah. Is Kat okay? Kat's good. Okay. Great. Macy Adams, right? Macy Adams. Okay, great. Great. I'm going to get this right. I'm going to get it wrong. Molly. Hi. Oh, okay. Okay, Amelia and Melissa. Okay. Oh, got it. Melissa. Great. Gavin. And did I miss anybody? Did you sign in on that yellow sheet? Everybody signed in? And where's the sheet? Zoe has it? Okay, so I have everybody signed in. 1, 2, 3. Nope, who's missing? Oh, up, down, up, and around here. So can you pass it right around in here? You can do that while we start. Okay. We're ready to go. Here's my first question. This is interactive, by the way. It's not just me talking. I want to hear from you as well. And when you speak up nice and loud, and I'll try and come around and find you to hear you, okay? And we'll let you sit here if it works, and if it doesn't, I'll make you sit up front. But I think we'll be okay. So can I have the next slide, please? All right. So first question. What are we doing here? What the heck? Why are we doing what? This is so weird. Why are we here? Okay? Anybody have any ideas what we're doing here? What's happening? What is this? Well, you must have some idea. We're going to talk about the basic things about Christianity. Okay. All right. He said we're going to talk about the basic things about Christianity. Emmett. And specifically, we're going to learn about the Ten Commandments. You probably saw that already in my letter, so that's good. Yep, we're going to learn. Somebody was paying attention. We're going to learn about the Ten Commandments. That's just what we're going to learn about in the next 5 weeks. Okay? But why are we doing that? Why are we going to learn those things? Why are we going to study the Ten Commandments? What's that all for? Why does it matter? Like, for instance, why did you, Dami, why did you come today? Why is that? You got forced to come. How many were forced to come today? Be honest, it's okay. How many were forced to come today? That's more than half, okay. Okay. Who forced you to come today? Parents? 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 Why did your parents force you to come today? Why do you think? What? Because all you do is play games and they wanted you to do something more important? Well, that's a pretty good reason. Wow. Okay. All right. They actually had a bit of a better reason than that. Next slide. Okay, here's why you're here today. You were here, or someplace like this, back when you were a baby, and you got baptized. Okay? And that baptism is why you're here right now as teenagers. Okay? Because what happened at that baptism? Okay, here's one thing that happened at that baptism. Your parents made a bunch of promises. Some of you were just here. How many of you were just here in worship? Raise your hand nice and high if you were here in worship just a little while ago. Yes, okay, great. I think all of you were. That's awesome. We'll talk about that in a minute. Today we had a baptism in worship, and those parents made a whole series of promises. Were you listening to that part? Okay. One of the things they promised was to bring you here to worship. And they promised to teach you the faith, okay? The Christian faith that we practice here, and specifically to teach you the Lord's Prayer, the Apostles' Creed, and the 10 Commandments. How about that? So we're here today so your parents can help fulfill that promise. We're going to learn about the 10 Commandments. Now, you might have learned about it as a younger child, but now you're learning about it as someone who's getting ready to be able to affirm the promises that were made at that baptism. That's what confirmation is. Confirmation is looking back at that baptism, which happened to you when you were a baby, and when your parents were the ones who were able to make that decision for you, okay? Now you're old. Now we're saying, you're old enough to be and to make your own decisions about things like your faith, okay? And so, in this confirmation program, we are getting ready to affirm our baptism, okay? Does that make sense? All right? Those same promises that were made. And let's look at that. Next slide. So if you grab one of these, it's an ELW, that's the worship book, has the hymns in it. But if you look in the front of the book, turn quickly with me to page 234 in the front. Pages are on the bottom. Page numbers are on the bottom. 234. Okay. And it should say at the top, affirmation of baptism. See that? Okay. We're not going to actually read every single thing right now, but let's just look how short it is. It's quite short. By the way, confirmation for those, not for you guys yet, but for those who've completed the program here at Atonement, is going to be in 2 weeks from today. So really try and be here for that, for sure. We'll have a class afterwards, first of all, but also you'll get to watch your maybe, well, I was going to say the older kids, but some of you are older already. The 9th graders who have completed the program do exactly what we're talking about. Affirm your baptisms. So affirmation of baptism. And on the first page, it's only 3 pages. On the first page, does everybody have a book to be able to look at this? Yep. All right, cool. On the first page, it says presentation. So we're going to present you to the congregation. Everybody's name gets read individually, and you come forward. Okay? Then you profess your faith. Okay? Everybody does that together. The whole congregation uses this as an opportunity to affirm our baptisms too. It's a great thing for everyone to do. So we do the same. Look, it looks just like that baptism that we just had. There's the renunciations and then the Apostles' Creed. Okay? Then turn the page and you'll see the affirmation in the presence of the assembly. And you're going to be asked to respond. Here's the list of promises that you're going to make. To live among God's faithful people. Okay, that means to be a part of a church. To hear the word of God and share in the Lord's Supper. That means to attend worship, okay, at that church. to proclaim the good news of God in Christ through word and deed. Okay, that means to spread God's message of love in what you say and in what you do. To serve all people, to be of service to others, following the example of Jesus, and to strive for justice and peace in all the earth. So those are the promises that you're going to make, some of you a year from now, some of you 2 years from now, okay? And then each of you will do that individually, and then whoever is the pastor will lay hands on each of you individually and bless you, say a prayer of blessing, and that laying on of hands, and parents, I believe, come forward too and join their hands as well. And just that simple touch is a really important rite that we do, that touch as we just bless you now as more or less adult members of the church, okay? So that's what we're doing here. So it's important. It's not, it's not just so that you don't spend an afternoon playing video games, okay? But it's important. Do you have any questions about that? And that next page is for, that's just if the congregation is doing it without young people doing it for the first time. So it's really, that's the end. It's 3 pages long. It's quite brief. All right? Great. Okay. So now, I forgot my little booklet. It's over here. Just one sec. Ah, yes. Great, I need this. Can I have the next slide? So, this confirmation program is comprised of 4 different things, okay? The first one is worship, okay? By the way, if you look at your Sunday bulletin and you look at the back of it, at the very top, it says, "Together we are on a journey of discipleship with Jesus, who guides us from worship to formation, formation to fellowship, and fellowship to Christ-like servanthood." Okay? That's exactly what this is. That's our model of how we make disciples at this congregation. Okay? We begin with worship. We say worship is the first and most important thing. So, part of this program is you guys coming to worship on Sundays at 10. All right? And so the expectation is that you would come at 10 and then stay at 11 for the learning part. It says formation on the back of that bulletin. That's just a fancy word to say learning about Jesus, being formed in the faith. And it's not just for children, it's not just for you teenagers, it's for all ages of the church, okay? We're going to learn some specific things. We're going to have some fellowship, but not quite yet. Our fellowship at the moment is right now. Here we are. Not terribly great fellowship, right? First of all, we just need to get the numbers in Berks County down a little bit so we can be a little safer and do some more fun things together without worrying about spreading the virus. And, of course, we also need some pastoral leadership, which we are waiting for. So as those happen, into 2022, we'll be offering some fellowship opportunities for you all. That's going to take a lot of your time. That's going to be a big deal. But so that we can get to know each other a little bit better, we go to different school districts. We don't all know each other, and we want to become a little bit more of a community together as we go through this confirmation program. So that we're saving until next year, until the winter. And finally, service. We're going to offer some different service opportunities throughout the program as well, but for right now, what we're offering is service in worship. That seemed like the easiest place to start. So you should have received an email, parents at least should have received an email with a link to a Sign Up Genius, okay? On that Sign Up Genius, it has some jobs to be done in 10 o'clock worship. You can also do 8:30, but it just makes sense. You might want to do 10 o'clock if you're staying for 11 o'clock so that you're not here all morning. And those jobs include things like being an acolyte, being in charge of the candles, okay, before and after worship. Ushers, greeters, readers, people to read just the lesson or people to read the prayer. You notice that there's a prayer to be read from the pulpit. Not all those slots are open every week, but I'm hoping that at least one time throughout these next, well, let's say through the end of the year, because you might not be able to sign up as soon as these next four weeks, okay? But if everyone here can find one thing to do, and you don't have to only do 1 week, but if you can find one thing to sign up with before the end of the year, that would be awesome, okay? There's no more classes after the middle of November, but that doesn't mean that we're still not going to have parts of the program going on. It is a 2-year program that will go on in various ways, okay? Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so sign up, do the Sign Up Genius with the link and find something that you would like to do. Talk to me if you have any questions, and I'll look at those names, and if I don't see your name on there, I'm going to bug you. Amelia, why haven't you signed up for anything yet? Okay, something like that, all right? Very good. Okay, so this is the learning part, and everything that we're going to learn this year in confirmation, this is a 2-year program, so there'll be some other things next year. But this year we're going to focus on learning Luther's small catechism, okay? And when it says small, it really is. This is it, okay? Everything is in this one little booklet, and that's all we're going to learn about now through the end of this school year. Okay? There'll be some other units. There'll be another unit in the winter and a 3rd unit in the spring, but before school is over. Okay? So what is Luther's small catechism? First of all, it's called Luther's Small Catechism, so who do you think wrote it? Anybody have a guess who wrote it? Luther's Small Catechism. What do you think, Emmett? Martin Luther. Good guess. Martin Luther wrote Luther's small, that's why it's called Luther's Small Catechism, okay? Now, I always do this just to be sure that we're all talking about the same person. Next slide. This is not Martin Luther. This is Martin Luther King Jr., American Baptist minister, civil rights leader who was assassinated in 1968, okay? American. This, next slide, is Martin Luther, okay? Martin Luther King Jr. was named after this guy. This guy was a German monk who lived 500 years ago in Germany, and he was one of the great church reformers who reformed the church. We'll talk about him another time at more length, but that's the guy we're talking about. He wrote this little book in 1529, almost, but not quite, 500 years ago. So this book has been used in the church for almost 500 years. It was originally written as a handbook to be used in the home, not doing what we're doing now, okay? It was originally for parents to have the book in their home, and it was the parents' responsibility to teach the children the Christian faith. Now, it's not like it's not still your responsibility, parents, it still is, but for a long time now, the church has helped with that responsibility by teaching confirmation classes to this age group in the church. And so this little book has been used in Lutheran churches. Oh, by the way, we're Lutherans, right? We're named after Martin Luther, okay? So, because he was in many ways, the founder of the church. Now, what's in this little book? Next. All right, it's pretty easy. The 10 Commandments, the Apostles' Creed, and the Lord's Prayer make up almost all of it, okay? 2/3 of it are those 3 things, okay? And those are the 3 components that we're going to be learning about, and we're going to be learning why those are considered the 3 most important parts of our written faith, okay? In addition, there's a little section on baptism and a little section on confession and a little section on communion. Baptism and communion are our sacraments, and confession isn't a sacrament, but it's considered essential to our faith, okay? And then at the very end of the book are just some prayers to be used. Remember, this was for the home to use, and so they're prayers that can be said at mealtime, at bedtime, in the morning, in the home, okay? And we'll talk about using this little book a little bit more soon. Anybody have any questions now? How's my time? Oh, look at that. Okay. Now, let's start talking about the Ten Commandments. Here's my first thing. Let's see how much you already know, okay? Okay, everybody see that fine? We're good? Okay. You don't even have to know what order. Raise your hand if you can name one commandment. You don't have to say it exactly right either. Okay, Zoe. Don't lie, okay? You're going to test my knowledge here. That's 8. It actually says, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. That's a very fancy, old-fashioned way to say, don't lie. I think, Thomas, you were next. Don't murder. That's number 5, and that says, thou shalt not kill. I'm going to put kill down. It's shorter than murder. Dami. Don't steal. Okay. Thou shalt not steal. Guys, you got 3? Good. Adam. Say it again. You shouldn't want what your neighbors have. Right. You should not want what your neighbors have. Excellent. Do you know the fancy word that it uses in the thing? What's the fancy word? No, but that is good. That's what it is. That's what, Dami? Say again. Jealousy, envy, that's exactly what we're talking about. The weird fancy word that it uses is covet. It's don't want what other people have. Wanting what other people have is coveting. Okay? Okay, we're good at the ending parts. We don't have too many in the beginning yet. Somebody else who hasn't answered yet? Anybody else have any ideas of any of these? Jack? Yes, adultery. Do you know what adultery is? Yes. What is adultery? Cheating. Good. Here's how I learned it. Just to remember the order. 6 is sex. Okay? It says, thou shalt not commit adultery. That means that when you have a life partner, you don't cheat. You don't have another sexual relationship with another person at the same time. Okay? We will talk more about that when we get there. But if you remember 6 is sex, you know, that's a pretty easy way to remember it. So you got 5 through 10. Couple more? All right, let's see. Thomas? Okay, only serve the Lord. That's not bad. I'll give you that one. There's only one God. Don't have any other gods. Okay, Dami? No, wait, I can't hear you. Say it a little louder. Louder? Oh, the parents. I thought I was parents. We finally got the parents one. It took them a while, didn't it? Yeah. It's honor your parents. Okay? I was worried for you parents. I was thinking they weren't going to get that one. There's two more. You did pretty good. That was pretty good. We don't know, no one has any guesses? There's a guess. It is. What's the Sabbath day? Well, at least you remember there's something about a Sabbath day. Let's call it God's day, okay? God gets a day, all right? Oh, we might have the last one. Emmett. Yes, that's this one, exactly. Yeah, a day of rest. It's also a day of rest, and we will talk all about that another week. You got all but one. Nobody? No takers for the last one? Parents, what's the one they missed? That's it. Oh, I think I'm running out of... Let's try a different one. Oh, much better. I should have used that from the beginning, huh? This one is about God's name, and it says, "Thou shalt not take the name of your Lord in vain," okay, which means a lot of times we think about cursing, using the name of the Lord as a curse. But there's more to it than that. Actually, when we read what Luther has to say about these 10 commandments, which we will be, we're going to learn that each one of them has a lot more to say than just don't do this or don't do that. And these actually become then for us rules for living. Okay? Great. Now I need your help with one more thing. How did we get these 10 commandments? Where did they come from? Who was responsible? Okay, Dami? Oh, it wasn't Abraham though. But you have the right idea. Who was it, Emmett? It was Moses. Next slide. Oh, my slide forwarder is awesome. Isn't she awesome? She anticipates me. That's great. Moses. This is a very famous sculpture of Moses in Rome, sculpted by the famous Michelangelo. Okay, pretty imposing guy, right? Moses. So let's talk a little bit then, in the rest of our time together, about Moses and figure out how we even got these 10 commandments. Okay? Where was Moses born? Where was Moses born? Thomas? In Egypt. Yes, in Egypt. Okay? Moses is from Egypt. All right? And who was the ruler of Egypt in Moses' day? Who was the ruler? What would we call him? Come on, you got to remember this from Bible school, Sunday school, Prince of Egypt, I don't know. Emmett. The Pharaoh. Okay? There's a wonderful, that's a carving from Egypt from the time of the pharaohs. And that's one of the pharaohs. Okay? But Moses wasn't Egyptian, was he? Who were Moses' people? Who were Moses' people? Can we have a couple other? Some of you are very quiet. Who were these people that Moses belonged to? All right, Dami. You're not sure? Okay. Say it again. Israelites. Yeah, they were the Israelites, okay? The Israelites had moved to Egypt because there had been a famine in Israel, and eventually they became slaves to the Egyptians. They were Egyptian slaves. They were in bondage, okay? And God called Moses to be his spokesperson, God's spokesperson, to help to set the Israelites free from bondage and free from the Pharaoh in Egypt. Raise your hand if that story even remotely sounds familiar. Okay. All righty. All right. That's fine. That's fine. We're going to learn about it right now. Okay? So, does anybody know, how did God call Moses? What did God do? Okay? What did God do? I got a few people who got this story. Gavin. He did what? Yes, we're going to get to that. But before that, he actually called Moses. Moses by then knew what he was supposed to do. But he didn't know at first. He was just a shepherd. Okay? And what did God do to come to Moses to call him? Dami? What? Say again? Called him 5 times? No, that's not it. That sort of reminds me of Beetlejuice. Do you ever see the movie Beetlejuice? Where if you say it 3 times, Beetlejuice appears. Nope, that's not it. Emmett? Come on, you got to be kidding me. He spoke through a bush that was on fire? That's right. Okay? So this was a pretty dramatic time in history, right? Okay? So God came to Moses in a burning bush. That's the story that we read in the Bible. Pretty hard to believe, isn't it? The bush was on fire, but it didn't burn up. It certainly got Moses' attention, didn't it? Okay? And that's where God told Moses, you are going to be the leader of the Israelites, and you are going to go to Pharaoh, you're going to tell him, let my people go. Okay? And I'm going to be there to help you. How do you think Moses reacted? Now, you don't have to even know the story. Okay, is this just this guy who is just like tending his sheep and minding his own business, and God tells him, oh, wait a minute, I have a different job for you. You're going to go back to Egypt. He wasn't in Egypt at the time, by the way. He had fled Egypt. But you're going to go back, and you're going to save all the people, and you're going to tell Pharaoh, you're just going to walk up to the king and tell him, stop doing this, let my people go. How do you think Moses reacted? How would you react? What do you think, Amelia? Freaking out. That is a very good description of exactly what Moses did. Yes, it doesn't say in the Bible Moses freaked out, but if you read the part where this happened, that's how we would put it today. He totally freaked, okay? He had all kinds of reasons why he could not do that, okay? He wasn't a good speaker. He was just plain too scared, and all of that, okay? But it didn't matter. This is who God had chosen. There's another part of the story that I didn't tell you. Moses actually knew Pharaoh. Do you know how he knew him? Thomas? Yes. So do you know that part of the story? When Moses was a baby, Pharaoh had ordered he was getting worried about there being too many of these slaves, and that especially the men might rise up and be too strong and too many. So he, at one point, wanted to have all the male babies killed. And Moses' was a baby. She put Moses in a basket, sent him down the river, and Pharaoh's daughter found him and raised him in the Egyptian palace as her own child. But that was a long time ago, so that maybe was a good person to pick. You know, this is someone who knew the Egyptian court, knew how those things worked. Moses had actually killed an Egyptian who was beating one of the slaves, and that's why he had fled. So God wanted him to go back and confront Pharaoh. Next slide. All right, and that probably went really well, right? So Moses went to Pharaoh and said, let my people go, and Pharaoh said, sure, no problem, right? No. What happened next? What happened next? What do you think, Macy? Do you remember this story at all? No? Never heard this story? Maybe? Okay. What do you think Pharaoh said? Just guess. Somebody who's... thanks, boys. You're great participants. Let's get some other people participating a little bit. What do you think Pharaoh said to that? Gavin? No. He said no. He said, you've got to be out of your mind. Of course not. So then, what did God do next? Okay. All right. I think it's Dami's turn. So Dami's telling us part of the story that is, it's a really long and complicated story. I was going to skip that part, but you're absolutely right. The first thing that he did was he threw his staff down on the ground, and the staff turned into a snake. But then Pharaoh just got his magicians to come and do the same thing. There was a lot of back and forth, but eventually God sent 10 plagues on the country of Egypt. The first one was turning the Nile River. You know that the Nile is the big river that goes through Egypt. Turning the river into blood so that no one could use it for drinking or for watering their livestock or anything, or for watering their plants. And each of the plagues was worse than the one before. There was a plague of locusts, a plague of darkness, a plague of boils on your skin. I don't even remember them all. It's not important, but there were all these plagues, and each time Pharaoh said no until the last plague, which was the worst one of all. Next slide. And that is, basically, it's a plague of death. It's death for each, in each household, the oldest son. By the way, sorry girls, but in this era, things were even more sexist than they are today. Okay, so in this era, it was the males who were the ones who were in charge and the ones who could work and earn money and all that kind of stuff. So it was the male sons, but in this case, you would have been, if you were Egyptian, you would have been safer than the boys, because the oldest boy in each household was killed. That's a picture of the angel of death with his sword coming over the land to kill all the firstborn. How many of you are firstborn sons? Raise your hand if you're the firstborn son. Adam is, Dami is, Emmett is, Gavin is. All right, so right in this room, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, wiped out, dead, okay? So how come the angel of death didn't kill the Israelite boys? What happened? Oh, good. Millie. Yes, they had to kill an animal. Do you know what kind of animal? It wasn't a hamster. No, it was a lamb. It was a lamb. That's okay. They had to kill a lamb, and what did they do? On the door, at the top of the door, they smeared a little of the blood, and then that's how the angel of death knew to pass over that house. And Jews to this day still celebrate that holiday. You've heard of Passover, right? This is what they're celebrating when they celebrate Passover, that time when they had the lamb's blood on their door. They ate the lamb, by the way. They roasted and ate the lamb. They didn't just waste the lamb. They ate it. And they got ready to leave because now Pharaoh said, go. Because, of course, Pharaoh's own firstborn son was killed in this last plague. You would think that would be the end of the story, right? It's not. You would think this has nothing to do with the Ten Commandments at this point, right? It does. Stay with me. The Israelites leave Egypt, and they start on their journey back to the Promised Land, which these days we call Israel. That's why they were the Israelites, okay? But Pharaoh changes his mind yet one more time. So, slide. They got to the Red Sea, okay? And now Pharaoh's army was following them to do what? To bring them back, to probably to kill some of them, but not to kill, to terrorize them, to show them that they were in charge, and to bring the rest of them back to Egypt. Now, they are not an army. They have no weapons. They have no horses. They're just people. They're just families, okay, with children and grandparents. And they are trying to get away. And here comes the army with chariots and horses and soldiers with swords. And in the way is the sea. Now, everybody knows what happens next, right? This is the most famous part, okay? All right? God tells Moses to stand up, to raise his staff, and the waters part and make a path through the sea. I love this painting of that. There's lots of different depictions of it, but this is my favorite, so I showed you this one, all right? So, a path through the sea, and the Israelites go across and get to the other side safely. The Egyptian army starts across the path as well. What happens to them? All right, Dami's hand shot up for that one. What happens? The sea collapsed on them. Moses raised his staff again. There he is doing it. Okay, you don't have to look back there. It's up in the front. That's just where I can see it, so I don't have to turn around. It's clever, huh? Yes, so Moses raised his staff up, and the sea went back, drowning the Egyptian army and all the horses, and the people were finally safe. Okay? So that's the story. That whole story is called the Exodus. Okay? An Exodus is when a whole lot of people leave someplace and go to someplace else. That's an Exodus. Okay? And the second book in the Bible is called Exodus, and that's where you'd find the story if you wanted to. So if you want to read this story, I'm not assigning, well, I'm going to assign a short reading, but I'm not assigning a Bible reading this week. But you can find it if you start in Exodus 1 and read about the first half of the book. You will read the story that we just retold right now. How's my time? Good. All right. Now, we still didn't get to the Ten Commandments, did we? Okay. Now you'd think the story was over, right? They're free, they can go to the Promised Land, right? Nope, it's still not right, okay? So the Promised Land has been not just empty, waiting for the Israelites to come back. Other people live there, people from other tribes, people with other religions, okay? And the Israelites, here's a picture, the Israelites end up wandering in the wilderness between Egypt and the Promised Land for the next 40 years. That seems cruel, doesn't it? It's like God worked so hard to get them out of Egypt, and yet now, for 40 years, they have to wait 40 more years. God isn't going to make a way for them to get into the Promised Land for 40 more years. That means most of the people who originally left Egypt are going to die just naturally before they get to the promised land, including Moses, by the way. Moses does not get to the promised land. He dies just before that is going to happen. So why in the world are they in the wilderness for 40 years? What do you think, Thomas? Yes, so for sure, there were a lot of things that they did wrong as a people. But I think that's just human nature, right? That's going to happen. Not everything's going to go according to plan. Some people are going to break some of these commandments. Some people are going to sin against God. But I think the point is, so that's true. So there's a sense we could look at it and say, well, God was punishing them. That's not the way I see it. When I read the scriptures and when I read this story, I see it as God spending the next 40 years teaching them how to be a people of God, teaching them how to live in a community of faith together, not to be just out for themselves, but to work together as a people with God as their leader and following God's way. That's why, next slide. During that wandering in the wilderness, God told Moses to come up on the top of the mountain, Mount Sinai, and he gave him two stone tablets. This is often important documents were carved into stone. That way that made them permanent. There was paper, that papyrus that the Egyptians used, but it was very fragile and easily destroyed. So God gave these 10 commandments to Moses in a big ceremony, which we'll learn about another week, on top of the mountain. And they were part of this teaching of God's people, part of helping them to learn how to be people of God. And by extension, how we still to this day, thousands of years later, still learn how to be people of God in our world today. They still apply to us today. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, we have about 8 more minutes. And that was the last slide. So I want you to do several things for me right now. How many of you right now have a phone with you? Okay. If you have a phone with you, here's what I want you to do. If you don't have a phone with you, if you don't have a phone, see me. If you don't have a phone with you, you can do this at home. Okay? So, open the App Store, and in the search, type in Luther's Small Catechism.
What was that called?
Luther's Small Catechism. The name of the little book, which, Luther's Small Catechism. Now, when you get there, scroll down a little bit till you find the one with, Crystal, can you get back up the picture of Luther's Small Catechism, the one, the big red one? That's it. So if you could see that white vine on a red background, just raise your hand if you see that on your App Store, okay? Press Get and put that on your phone. Then you don't even need one of these, okay? If you don't have a phone yet, that's okay. See me, and I will give you a paper copy. Here's what I'd like you to do for next Sunday. It's really easy. I want you to read the part that's the 10 Commandments. You can read it right on your phone. If you go right now to the app, if you've downloaded it, you'll see a bunch of symbols there, and one of them looks like a sort of a whirling galaxy or star or something. It says the Ten Commandments. You just click on that, and then you'll have it. And it's just, I downloaded the fancy version, so I have fancy pictures. You don't need the fancy pictures. That costs $2. You don't need to spend $2. You can just get the plain version, and that's it. And then it's over. It's very short. In the book, it's about 5 pages, and each page has like 3 sentences, okay? So it's not a lot, but look at that for next week. I'd like you to start to, my goal is by the end of the 5 weeks, it's not that you can say the 10 Commandments word for word. I don't care about that. But I want you to be able to know what the 10 of them are. You did a good job already today, so you already know some of them, but I want you to know them and in order. I think that's important to have. Marcy, did you have a question? Oh, sorry. Okay, all right. And then we're going to talk about the first 3 of them, the first 3 commandments. The ones that are about our relationship with God are the first 3. One God, God's name, God's day. Those are the 3 that we're going to focus on for next Sunday. Is there anything else I had to tell you? Remember Sign Up Genius, okay? The link is in your parents' email. If you miss a class, we are taping the classes, and they will be posted on Atonement's YouTube page by Tuesday. You wouldn't want to look for it on Monday. It might not be there, but by Tuesday, it would be there. And then if you have to miss a class, some people are missing right now today, I know because I heard from some of their parents, and that's fine. Hopefully they'll be watching this later in the week so that they can stay caught up. And you can do the same thing if you need to miss any of the classes. And anything else here on my list? I don't think so. I did say that this is just the first of 3 groups of classes. Each one I can't say for sure what will happen once we get an interim pastor. That person might have some other ideas, but the tentative plan is to have 2 more sessions, 2 more 5-week sessions, one in the winter, probably in February into March, and then one in the spring after Easter. And one will focus on the Apostles' Creed, and the last one on the Lord's Prayer. Any questions from any of the kids or their parents? You've been awesome. Hopefully I didn't bore you too terribly, and hopefully I will see you again next week in worship and in class. Thank you very much.